The Shadow Fleet awakens. The Concordium had ruled the stars for 3 centuries, a coalition of 7 advanced species that had divided the known galaxy between them like feudal lords of old Earth. Their biomechanical ships, elegant and deadly, patrolled trade routes and subjugated any emerging civilization foolish enough to resist their protection. Supreme Director Kazan stood on the command deck of the Eternal Vigilance, his translucent tentacles rippling with anticipation as the holographic display showed their fleet's approach to the Sol system. The Preliminary Assessment Director asked First Adjutant Vex, her crystalline exoskeleton glinting under the ambient light. Primitive, Kazan replied, studying the data. The humans have achieved limited interplanetary travel, established rudimentary colonies on their moon and the fourth planet, and possess nuclear capabilities. A typical Level 2 civilization, barely worth our attention except for their unusual biological diversity. The Intelligence Division had been monitoring Earth for decades, carefully cataloging human technological development, military capabilities, and resource extraction. Standard protocol demanded a show of force before offering the choice every species faced: join the Concordium as a client race or face extinction. Prepare the demonstration package, Kazan ordered. Target their orbital defense platforms. Incoming vessels detected, Director, announced the sensor officer suddenly. Primitive design, chemical propulsion. They appear to be an interceptor force. Kazan's feeding tentacles curled in amusement. Let us hear their challenge before we educate them on the futility of resistance. The communication channel opened, and a human voice filled the command deck. Attention, unknown vessels. This is General Warren of Earth Defense Command. You have entered restricted space. Power down your systems and identify yourselves immediately. Laughter rippled through the command crew. The human's tone carried authority but lacked understanding of who they faced. Kazan authorized the standard pre-subjugation message, informing Earth that the Concordium claimed their system, that resistance would result in eradication, and that cooperation would lead to the privilege of serving greater galactic interests. They continue their approach, Vex noted with surprise, either remarkably brave or profoundly foolish. Target their lead vessels, Kazan commanded. Destroy half their fleet, let them witness our power before they kneel. The weapons officers prepared to fire when alarms suddenly blared across the command deck. Where empty space had existed moments before, a single human vessel materialized directly alongside the Eternal Vigilance. Impossible, Kazan's tentacles stiffened. They have no displacement technology. The vessel was unlike anything in the Concordium database. Sleek and angular, its hull was a deep matte black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible propulsion systems, weapons ports, or external sensors could be detected. Most disturbing was its modest size, barely 1/8 the length of the Concordium flagship, yet it had appeared with precision that suggested technological sophistication far beyond Level 2. Incoming transmission, the communications officer announced, confusion evident in their harmonics. The main display activated, revealing a human male. His uniform was unlike those worn by the crews of the approaching Earth vessels, simple, functional, and bearing minimal insignia. It suggested a different branch of their military altogether. Concordium vessels, he said calmly, his voice translated seamlessly. I am Captain Ethan Blackwood of the Terran Strategic Fleet. You have been misled. Kazan raised himself to full height, towering over his subordinates. Explain your meaning, human, before you are destroyed for your insolence. The human's expression didn't change. Your intelligence on Earth is outdated and deliberately manipulated. What you see approaching is not our defense fleet, it's bait. At that moment, the sensor officer called out, Director, the approaching human vessels, they're unmanned drones. Before Kazan could process this information, Captain Blackwood continued, For nearly 3 decades, we've studied your Concordium. We've analyzed your communication protocols, your weapon systems, your biomechanical interfaces. We've prepared accordingly. The human vessel, the HSS Nemesis according to the identifier now broadcasting, suddenly emitted a complex signal across all frequencies. Throughout the Concordium fleet, ship systems began to fluctuate as the signal interfered with the delicate balance between mechanical components and biological interfaces that gave Concordium technology its adaptive advantage. What is happening? Kazan demanded as the Eternal Vigilance's lights flickered. The signal is disrupting our bioneural pathways, the systems officer reported frantically. It's like, it's like a virus designed specifically for our technology. On the display, Captain Blackwood remained composed. While we displayed primitive technology in plain sight we developed in secret, we observed dozens of your conquests, Director. We collected biological samples, studied your signals, identified your weaknesses. Across the fleet, ships were losing power as the signal corrupted their systems. The mighty Concordium conquest fleet, undefeated for generations, was being systematically neutralized by a single human vessel and an elegantly designed signal. You should know, Blackwood continued, that we could destroy your entire fleet right now. The drone vessels approaching your position carry quantum destabilization warheads capable of tearing apart your molecular structure. But unnecessary destruction isn't our way. As the Eternal Vigilance's systems continued failing around him, Kazan finally understood the magnitude of their miscalculation. The Concordium had categorized humans based on visible technology, not recognizing the strategic minds that wielded it. They had evaluated hardware, not ingenuity. You've made a powerful enemy today, Kazan managed as emergency systems engaged. Captain Blackwood shook his head slightly. No, Director, today we prevented a war. The demonstration is complete. Your systems will restore in approximately 1 hour, enough time for you to consider your options. The Sol system is off-limits to the Concordium. Spread the word. The transmission ended, and the human vessel, this nemesis that had appeared from nowhere, shimmered briefly before vanishing as suddenly as it had arrived, leaving behind a disabled but salvageable Concordium fleet. In the hour that followed, the Concordium fleet hung suspended in space, their vessels powered down to essential life support systems only. The primitive human drones maintained position at a calculated distance, close enough to strike, far enough to suggest confidence rather than aggression. Aboard the Eternal Vigilance, technicians worked frantically to restore systems, while Kazan convened an emergency council with his senior commanders in the Auxiliary Command Center. How is this possible? Demanded Subdirector Nylax, his photoreceptors pulsing with agitation. Our intelligence network has monitored this system for decades. There were no indications of advanced technology. Because they wanted it that way, Kazan replied, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. They detected our early scouts and constructed an elaborate deception. Everything we observed was deliberately shown to us. First, Adjutant Vex manipulated the holographic display, reviewing what little data they had captured about the human vessel, the Nemesis, before their systems had been compromised. The hull composition is unlike anything in our database, she reported. It appears to absorb scanning waves rather than reflect them, and the displacement technology they used to appear within our formation. Our analysts previously believed such precision was theoretically impossible. Kazan's feeding tentacles curled inward, a sign of intense concentration. The question is not how they did this, but what they intend now. They could have destroyed us, yet they chose demonstration over annihilation. As if in answer to his question, the communication system suddenly reactivated. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, announced the communications officer. They have returned. On screen, Kazan ordered. Captain Blackwood appeared once more. Behind him, the command center of the Nemesis was now visible, a revolutionary design that bore little resemblance to the crude cockpits of the decoy vessels the Concordium had initially observed. Supreme Director, he greeted Kazan, your systems should be partially restored by now, enough to maintain life support and limited communications at least. Kazan straightened to his full height. You have made your point, human. Your species has hidden capabilities we did not anticipate. Now state your terms. Open your database viewer, Blackwood instructed. We're transmitting a comprehensive file. The tactical display shifted as new information flooded in. Detailed scans of Concordium colony worlds, schematics of their vessels, even genetic profiles of various Concordium species specialized for different functions within their hierarchy. How did you obtain this? Kazan demanded, his voice vibrating with alarm. For 28 years, we've operated observer vessels throughout Concordium space, Blackwood explained. Vessels similar to the Nemesis, equipped with technology specifically designed to evade your detection methods. We've studied every aspect of your coalition, your social structure, your technology, your conquest patterns. The implications were staggering. While the Concordium had been observing humans from a distance, Categorizing them as primitive based on their visible technology, humans had been conducting deep reconnaissance within Concordium territory, gathering intelligence that would have required vessels to travel undetected through multiple secured systems. Earth is no longer alone, Captain Blackwood continued. We have established contact with 17 species currently under Concordium control. They have provided us with valuable insights into your operations and are prepared to rise against their overlords at our signal. The tactical display shifted again, showing a map of human territory. What had appeared to be primitive outposts on Mars and the Moon were revealed to be elaborate facades concealing vast underground complexes. Jupiter's moons, previously thought uninhabited, now displayed evidence of significant human military presence. Asteroid bases, hidden shipyards, quantum communication relays, and entire fleets of warships waiting in the shadows. Captain Blackwood's expression remained neutral, but his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. The rules have changed, Director Kazan. The era of Concordium domination has ended. We offer you a choice, the same choice you've offered so many others. Adapt to a new reality or face extinction. Terran Ultimatum. The Concordium High Council convened an emergency session aboard the Collective Wisdom, their mobile capital ship which had been summoned to the edge of the Sol system. Representatives from all 7 founding species gathered in the Grand Chamber, their voices rising in a cacophony of accusations and fear. Supreme Director Kazan observed the chaos with growing unease, his translucent tentacles now dull and listless. Silence, demanded Primus Executor Zalara, the eldest member of the council. Her crystalline form glowed with barely contained fury. In 3 centuries of Concordium rule, we have never faced such humiliation. An untested species has rendered our flagship fleet helpless without firing a single conventional weapon. The humans possess technology that should be impossible for their development stage, stated Chief Technologist Vorn, his metallic exoskeleton clicking nervously. Our projections suggest they have somehow advanced centuries beyond our estimates. Kazan finally spoke, his voice subdued. They were never primitive. Everything we observed was deliberate misdirection. While we watched their crude rockets and satellites, they were studying us. They have observer ships throughout our territory, vessels we cannot detect, and have formed alliances with our subject worlds. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Concordium's superiority had been built on technological advantage and strategic intelligence. Both now appeared compromised. We have restored partial functionality to our fleet, Kazan continued. But the humans could have destroyed us entirely. Instead, they chose to demonstrate their capabilities and offer terms. Terms? Zalara's crystalline structure flashed with indignation. The Concordium does not accept terms, we dictate them. A new voice interjected, deep, resonant, and rarely heard in council deliberations. Perhaps it is time we learn adaptability from our adversaries. All eyes turned to the shadowed alcove where Supreme Strategist Zorix emerged. The strategist belonged to the rarest of the Concordium species, the Nexus Minds, created specifically for warfare and strategic planning. Zorix's 6-limbed form moved with deliberate grace as he approached the central platform. You suggest capitulation, strategist, Zalara demanded. I suggest survival, Zorix replied, his multifaceted eyes scanning the assembled leaders. The humans have revealed only a fraction of their capabilities, yet what they've shown already surpasses our most advanced systems. They have studied us thoroughly while concealing their true nature. This indicates not just technological prowess but strategic brilliance. Zorix activated the central holographic display, showing recordings from the encounter with the human vessel. Notice how they precisely neutralized our systems without permanently damaging them. They targeted our biomechanical interfaces with perfect accuracy, suggesting intimate knowledge of our physiology and technology. What do you propose, strategist? Kazan asked. We accept their invitation to negotiate, Zorix stated simply. We learn what we can about their true capabilities and we prepare contingencies. Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Nemesis, Captain Ethan Blackwood received the Concordium's formal acceptance of Earth's invitation to a diplomatic summit. Lieutenant Commander Orion Frost, the ship's tactical officer, studied the message with skepticism. They're stalling, Frost said, his dark eyes narrowing. Their fleet systems are recovering faster than we anticipated. Analysis suggests they're adapting their bioneural pathways to resist our disruption signal. Blackwood nodded, unsurprised. We expected as much. The Concordium didn't become the dominant power in this sector by being slow learners. Director of Intelligence Lyra Nakamura entered the command sphere, her movements precise and economical. The Concordium has summoned their supreme strategist Zorix to oversee the response to our emergence. Our intelligence network reports unprecedented activity throughout their territory, fleet redeployments, weapons development, diplomatic outreach to former rivals. They're preparing for war while talking peace, Blackwood observed. As we would in their position, Nakamura replied. Admiral Castellanos has authorized activation of Contingency Omega. The full Shadow fleet is being brought to combat readiness. Blackwood studied the strategic display, showing the positions of Earth's hidden defensive network. For decades, humanity had constructed their visible space presence as a facade, rudimentary stations and chemical rockets serving as cover for quantum shipyards and displacement-capable warships hidden throughout the solar system. The Nemesis was merely one of hundreds of advanced vessels developed in secret. Transmit coordinates for the neutral meeting ground, Blackwood ordered. We'll proceed with the diplomatic exchange as planned, but I want our defensive grid at full alert. The Concordium will test our resolve before these negotiations conclude. 3 days later, the diplomatic summit convened aboard Nexus Station, a massive habitat in the orbit of Ceres that had remained shielded and invisible until hours before the meeting. The Concordium delegation, led by Supreme Director Kazan and Supreme Strategist Zorix, arrived in a diplomatic vessel escorted by the now functional Eternal Vigilance. The human delegation awaited them in the Grand Forum, a circular chamber with representatives from Earth's unified government alongside military leaders of the Terran Strategic Command. President Alara Domings rose as the aliens entered, her expression carefully neutral. Supreme Director, she greeted Kazan. Welcome to human space. We appreciate your willingness to engage in dialogue rather than conflict. The diplomatic niceties proceeded with careful formality, but beneath the surface, both sides were continuously assessing the other. Captain Blackwood observed the Concordium representatives with particular attention to Zorix, whose compound eyes seemed to miss nothing. As the substantive negotiations began, President Domings outlined humanity's position. For 3 centuries, the Concordium has expanded through conquest and subjugation. We propose a new paradigm, coexistence based on mutual respect. The Sol system and its affiliated colonies will remain sovereign territory. Additionally, we demand independence for 17 worlds currently under Concordium control. Kazan's tentacles writhed in agitation. You presume to dictate terms to an empire that spans 1,000 systems. Your demonstration, while impressive, does not grant you the authority to redraw galactic boundaries. We're not asking, Captain Blackwood interjected, his voice level. The subjugated worlds have already been informed of our protection. The choice before the Concordium is whether this transition happens peacefully or otherwise. Zorix studied the humans with analytical precision before speaking. Your species emerged from isolation with remarkable capabilities, yet you must realize that the Concordium's resources vastly outnumber your own. A protracted conflict would be costly for all involved. The negotiations continued for hours, tensions rising as fundamental differences in philosophy became apparent. The Concordium, built on hierarchy and dominance, struggled to accept an equilibrium with a species they had initially classified as inferior. During a recess, Blackwood conferred privately with Intelligence Director Nakamura, whose expression was grave. Multiple Concordium vessels are moving into position throughout the asteroid belt, she reported quietly. They're using the diplomatic session as cover to surround Nexus Station. Blackwood's expression hardened. So Zorix chose the predictable path after all. Alert the Shadow Fleet but maintain communication blackout. Let them think their movements are undetected. When negotiations resumed, Supreme Strategist Zorix had taken center position, with Kazan noticeably subdued beside him. We have considered your proposal, Zorix announced, and find it fundamentally unacceptable. The Concordium cannot relinquish authority over worlds that depend on our guidance and protection. President Domings's expression remained composed. That is unfortunate. We had hoped for a peaceful transition. However, Zorix continued, his multifaceted eyes gleaming, we are prepared to recognize Earth's sovereignty and establish non-aggression protocols, provided you withdraw your claims over our subject worlds. That offer is rejected, Blackwood stated flatly. Zorix's outer limbs twitched, a subtle signal that triggered immediate action. Throughout the station, concealed Concordium operatives disabled security systems while the surrounding fleet moved to firing positions. Perhaps you misunderstand your situation, Zorix said, his voice suddenly cold. Your impressive vessel and technology notwithstanding, you are now surrounded. This station is compromised, your leadership is isolated, and your defensive capabilities are outmatched. The Concordium respects strength, Captain Blackwood. Now you will respect ours. Blackwood exchanged a glance with President Domings, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Then, to the alien's surprise, he smiled. Supreme Strategist, Blackwood said calmly, I believe there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about humanity's position in this encounter. He activated his neural interface, causing the station's holographic systems to display the surrounding space. What had appeared empty now revealed hundreds of human vessels that had been present all along, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them invisible even to Concordium sensors. The Concordium fleet that had maneuvered to surround the station now found itself hopelessly outnumbered and outpositioned. You speak of respect, Blackwood continued. We agree it's essential, but respect begins with honest appraisal of reality. Your ships are once again targeted with quantum disruption signals, improved versions calibrated to overcome your recent adaptations. Additionally, each of your vessels is now surrounded by at least 3 of ours. Zorix's composed demeanor finally cracked, his limbs rigid with shock. Impossible, our sensors detected nothing. Just as they detected nothing for 28 years while we studied you, Blackwood replied. The Nemesis was merely one prototype. The Shadow Fleet represents humanity's true military capability. You have hidden strengths, Zorix acknowledged, his analytical mind already recalculating. Yet conflict between us would devastate both sides. Precisely why we offered terms rather than annihilation, President Domings interjected. Humanity has no desire for empire, Supreme Strategist. We desire security and justice. The 17 worlds we've claimed deserve self-determination just as Earth does. Kazan, who had remained silent, suddenly addressed his strategist. You assured the Council that humans could be managed, Zorix. It appears your assessment was flawed. Not flawed, Zorix replied thoughtfully. Incomplete, there is a difference. He turned to face the human representatives. You have demonstrated not just technological superiority but strategic foresight. The Concordium recognizes both. As humanity's hidden fleet maintained its perfect formation around the outmaneuvered Concordium vessels, a new galactic reality crystallized in that moment. The human delegation presented their terms once more: independence for Earth and its allies, freedom for the 17 worlds under Concordium control, and mutual respect between civilizations going forward. This time, the terms were accepted. In the aftermath, as the diplomatic parties prepared to depart, Supreme Strategist Zorix approached Captain Blackwood privately. Your species concealed its true nature for decades, Captain, a remarkable accomplishment. Necessity, Blackwood replied. History taught us that emerging civilizations rarely survive contact with established empires unless they hold decisive advantages. A lesson the Concordium may need to relearn, Zorix observed. Today marks the end of our unchallenged dominance. Other subjugated worlds will surely seek your protection now. Or yours could offer them partnership instead of subjugation, Blackwood suggested. Adaptation, after all, is the true mark of an advanced species. As the Concordium delegation departed, the Shadow Fleet escorted them to the system boundary, a final demonstration of humanity's vigilance. Aboard the Nemesis, Blackwood watched them go, aware that this was merely the beginning of a new era in galactic relations. Humanity had emerged from isolation not as conquerors, but as liberators and protectors, roles that would define their place among the stars for generations to come. The galaxy will never be the same, Lieutenant Commander Frost observed, standing beside him. That was always the plan, Blackwood replied, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond. Fear kept the Concordium's empire intact for centuries. Perhaps respect will build something more lasting.